At my father's retirement gala, I watched him raise his glass. Robert Miller, bathed in the spotlight, wearing that smug smile he always wore when the world was admiring him. He announced that my brother, Christopher, would inherit everything. The $250 million company, the media empire, the entire family legacy. Then, he turned his eyes toward me. The smile tightened. And to my daughter, Elsa, he said, his voice dropping. The one with the soft heart. I'll be leaving her a trust fund of $50,000 a year. Just enough to keep her busy with her little hobbies. Have you ever felt like the invisible one in your own family? Let me know your story down in the comments. That speech, that humiliation, wasn't the start of the night. It was the end. 30 minutes earlier, I was standing in the Miller Legacy wing of the Modern Art Museum. The room was glittering. Crystal chandeliers hung low, casting a warm light on the city's most powerful people. Champagneflutes klinked. A string quartet played something soft and expensive. It was a room built to celebrate my father's power. And I felt completely, utterly cold. My father, Robert Miller, was on stage, accepting the Philanthropist of the Year award. The irony was so thick, I could barely breathe. He was smiling, holding the glass trophy, and talking about the Miller Foundation's latest project, the new downtown community center. We believe in giving back, he said, his voice echoing with false humility. We believe that true success is about lifting up the community. I almost laughed. I looked down at the program. There was his picture, right next to a rendering of the building. My building. That was my project. I was the one who spent 18 months building it. I was the one who sat through the late-night city council zoning meetings. I was the one who negotiated with contractors, who met with the community leaders, who listened to the stories of the families we were trying to help. I knew the names of the kids who would use the after-school program. I knew the single mothers who needed the job training center. My father, he had never even visited the site. Not once. I watched him accept the applause. And that old, familiar ache settled in my chest. The pain of being invisible. This was his pattern. My passion. My work. My compassion. These were just resources for him to mine. They were hobbies he could repackage, put his name on, and use to build his own legacy. No. Father, you don't believe in giving back. You believe in taking credit. My brother, Christopher, slid up beside me. A perfectly tailored suit and a blindingly white smile. He was the heir. The golden child. A perfect mirror of our father's ambition. He nudged me. His voice a low, mocking whisper. Try to look less bored. Elle, you're ruining the photo op. I didn't answer. I just watched as he glided away, shaking hands, accepting congratulations for work he'd never done. He was born for this. He knew how to look important, how to laugh at the right jokes, how to exist in this world of glittering surfaces. I looked for my mother, Karen. She was standing near the stage, her smile as perfect and fixed as the pearls at her throat. She looked like a queen, playing her part. Our eyes met across the room. I saw a flicker of something. Acknowledgement guilt. But just as quickly as it came, it was gone. She turned away. She looked down at her glass, smoothing the silk of her gown. As always, that was her role. The silent peacekeeper. The one who enabled the cruelty by pretending not to see it. I knew what was coming next. My father's speech wasn't just about the award. It was his retirement announcement. And I knew, just as everyone in this room knew, what that meant. This was Christopher's coronation. And I was just the shadow he cast. I was the scapegoat. The soft heart in a family that valued only power. And I was about to be put back in my place. My father, Robert Miller, stepped back to the microphone, his smile radiating satisfaction. He raised his glass. The room fell instantly silent. To build a legacy, he began, his voice booming with authority. You need more than vision. You need strength. You need a successor who isn't afraid of the hard decisions. He turned his gaze to my brother, and his smile widened, filled with a genuine pride. He never, ever showed me. Christopher has proven he has that strength. He sees the world for what it is. Son, I am proud to announce that, upon my retirement, the company is yours. The room erupted in applause. It was a coronation. Christopher stood up, bowing his head slightly, accepting the praise as his birthright. My father held up a hand, silencing the room again. But the smile remained. Then, that smile tightened. His eyes found me, sitting at the family table. The warmth vanished. Of course, he said, his tone shifting. A family also needs balance. He paused, letting the silence stretch, letting every eye in the room follow his gaze to me. My daughter, Elsa. He said my name like it was an afterthought. Her compassion. It's admirable. For the little things. My stomach clenched. I knew this tone. This was the tone he used before the kill. So, to ensure she's never burdened by the complexities of the business, I have established a trust fund in her name. $50,000 a year. Just enough, he added, with a light chuckle, to keep her busy with whatever hobbies she finds. $50,000. The words hung in the air. It wasn't a gift. It was a public execution. It was a cage. He had just, in front of 200 of the city's most powerful people, dismissed my entire life, my work, my passion, my degree, as a hobby. He had put a price tag on my worth, and it was a rounding error in his empire. I heard polite, uncomfortable titters ripple through the crowd. I saw my brother Christopher smirk into his champagne glass, reveling in my humiliation. And in that moment, as the heat rose in my face, everything became crystal clear. I finally understood. This wasn't just favoritism. This was a system. This was the classic, narcissistic family system. My father, Robert, the narcissist at the center, demanding constant admiration. My brother, Christopher, the golden child, the one who reflects all of the father's ambition and glory, the one who can do no wrong. And me, I realized, as the humiliation burned in my chest, I was the scapegoat. I was the one who carried everything he hated. His weakness, his softness, anything that didn't fit his ruthless image. He projected onto me. I wasn't just the invisible daughter. I was the family's emotional dumpster. The $50,000 trust wasn't a safety net. It was a label. It was his way of telling the world, she is broken. She is incapable. She needs me to survive. It was a lie. The humiliation was so sharp, so complete, that it didn't break me. It did the opposite. It burned away the last bit of fog. The last desperate hope that one day he would finally see me. He saw me. He had always seen me. He just didn't like what he saw. I stood up. The sound of my chair scraping against the marble floor was loud. Too loud. The laughter and whispers died instantly. Every head turned. My father paused, his smile faltering, annoyed by the interruption. My mother looked up, her eyes wide with panic, silently begging me, Don't make a scene. I looked at her. I looked at my father on the stage. I didn't say a word. I just turned, and I started walking toward the exit. I wasn't running away. I wasn't fleeing. I was just leaving. I was done being the audience for my own execution. I needed to breathe. I was almost at the exit, just pushing past the heavy velvet curtains that led to the main lobby, when a voice cut through the silence. Elsa, wait. I turned. It was my Aunt Susan, my father's sister. Susan was the family lawyer, the one who always looked tired, the one who navigated our family's dysfunctions with a weary, professional distance. She was holding a large, thick manila envelope. He shouldn't have done that, she said, her voice low. That was cruel, even for him. I just nodded, my throat too tight to speak. I wanted to be out of the building. Listen, she said, stepping closer and lowering her voice even more. I was given instructions years ago from your grandmother. My grandmother. Eleanor. The founder. The woman whose name was on the wing of the museum we were standing in. She had died when I was in college. Eleanor was very specific. Susan continued, her eyes glancing back at the ballroom. I was to give this to you. And only you. On the night your father officially announced his retirement. After he spoke. Not before. She held out the envelope. It was heavy. My name, Elsa Miller, was written across the front in my grandmother's elegant, sharp handwriting. She called it a failsafe. Susan whispered. She said, if Robert becomes the man I fear he is, this will be necessary. Elsa. He's become that man. My hands were shaking. I looked at the envelope. I looked back at the ballroom, where the applause had died, and my father and brother were already accepting congratulations. Moving on. As if my public execution had just been a minor item on the agenda. I felt that familiar shame. The urge to take the envelope, slip into the night, and read it in private. To hide. But the humiliation from moments ago. It was still burning. It had burned away my fear. No, I said. And my voice surprised me. It was cold. Not in private. Not tonight. I turned away from the exit. I walked back into the ballroom. The whispers started as soon as I was spotted. People parted to let me through. Their faces a mix of pity and morbid curiosity. I walked straight past the guests. Past my brother's smug face. Past my mother's terrified one. I walked right back to the family table. Right in the center of the room. I ignored my father, who was watching me with a look of pure, thunderous rage. How dare you interrupt my night? I sat down. I placed the thick envelope on the table. And in the sudden, heavy silence of the room, I slid my finger under the clasp and tore it open. The sound was like a gunshot. Inside wasn't just a letter. It was a stack of documents. Thick. Bound by a blue legal ribbon. And on top, a handwritten letter on her personal stationery. My hands were trembling. But my voice, when I started to read, it was clear. I started quietly. Just for myself. My dearest Elsa. Then I looked up. I looked at my father. And I started again. My voice rising. Projecting across the room. My dearest Elsa. If you are reading this, it means I am gone. And my greatest fears have been realized. I built Miller Industries on a simple principle, that integrity was our greatest asset. I fear your father has forgotten that. What is this? My father hissed from the stage. Elsa. Sit down. This is not the time. I ignored him. I kept reading. Your father sees compassion as a weakness. I have always seen it as your strength. It is the only thing that can balance the ruthless ambition he inherited. He sees your brother as a mirror. But he sees you as a threat. He was always wrong. Elsa! My father shouted. Security. Keep reading. Aunt Susan said, appearing beside me. It's your right. I held the letter high. I have watched you. Elsa. I watched you build your first community garden. I watched you give your time to things that didn't offer a profit, but offered a purpose. You are my true heir. Not him. Not Christopher. A collective gasp sucked the air out of the room. This, I said, my voice shaking with the power of it, is a letter from Eleanor Miller. And these, I held up the bound documents. These are the legal, binding papers. She didn't leave her controlling interest to my father. She left it to me, to be transferred from a trust to my full control. On the day he officially retired, my father's face went white. Utterly, deathly white. She left the company to me, I said, meeting his horrified gaze, to save its soul. From you. The room didn't just get quiet. It died. The only sound was the sharp, loud smash of a champagne flute hitting the marble floor. My father, Robert, had dropped his glass. Champagne and shards of crystal sprayed across the stage. He was staring at the documents in my hand. His face not just white, but a waxy, sickly gray. His mask of power was gone. For the first time in my life, I saw what he really was. A small, terrified man. It was Christopher who broke the spell. Fraud, he screamed. His voice cracked. High and ugly. He lunged forward from his table, jabbing a finger at me. That's a fake. She faked it, Dad. Tell them. It's a disgusting trick. My father tried to speak. He opened his mouth, but only a dry, gasping sound came out. He gripped the podium, his knuckles white. That's a letter, he finally stammered, his voice thin. He was trying to rebuild his authority. But it was like watching a building collapse in slow motion. Just a letter. From a senile old woman. It has no legal standing. The official will was updated years ago. Susan. Tell them. He pointed at my aunt. The lawyer. Tell them it means nothing. All eyes swiveled to Aunt Susan. She looked pained. She stepped forward, holding the documents I had given her. Robert. The letter is accompanied by a notarized directive. She began, but her voice was hesitant. But he is right. The final family trust. The one I have on file. It was updated. It does name Christopher. My heart stopped. No. After all this. Was it just a wish? A final, cruel joke? My father saw the opening, and a flicker of his old self returned. He let out a shaky, relieved laugh. You see, a sentimental wish? Nothing more. Elsa, you've made a terrible, terrible scene. No. The word was quiet, but it cut through the room like a diamond. It wasn't my voice. My mother, Karen Miller, stood up. She hadn't moved. She hadn't spoken. She had been a statue of silent support at my father's side for 30 years. But now, she was standing. She didn't look at my father. She didn't look at the crowd. She looked at me. Her face was calm. The perfect, polite mask, gone. Replaced by something I had never seen. Resolution. No. Robert, she said again. Her voice clear and carrying across the room. She walked. Not to my father, but to me and Susan. Eleanor was many things, my mother said, speaking to the room. But she was never senile, and she knew her son. My father's face twisted. Karen. What are you doing? Sit down. My mother ignored him. She reached into her small, elegant evening bag, the one that always looked like it held nothing but lipstick. She pulled out an envelope, identical to the one I had just opened. Old, thick, sealed with wax. Eleanor knew you would try to change it. Robert, she said, her voice shaking just a little. But not with fear. With rage. She knew you would bully the lawyers. That you would never let the company go to anyone but your own reflection. She held the envelope up. She gave me this. A notarized, binding copy of her final will and testament. 20 years ago. Just after Christopher was born. She made me hide it. She said, Karen, keep this. And God help us. I hope you never have to use it. But if Robert ever forgets who he is, if he ever tries to steal the soul of what I built, you'll know what to do. She didn't give it to Susan. She gave it to me. She said to give it to the rightful heir. My mother whispered, her eyes filling with tears for the first time. That's you. Elsa. It was always you. I looked at my father. He wasn't breathing. He was staring at my mother. At the second envelope. His face a mask of pure, unadulterated horror. The betrayal, the checkmate, was not from his mother. It was from his wife. The silent one. He made a sound. A low, strangled noise in the back of his throat. He staggered back, clutching his chest, and collapsed into his chair on the stage. His reign was over. His self-destruction was complete. And it was his own wife who had delivered the final, killing blow. I looked at my father. He was just a man. A broken, defeated man staring at the floor. His empire crumbled around him. Then I looked at my brother. Christopher. He wasn't looking at me. He was staring at our mother. Karen. his eyes filled with a venomous, stunned betrayal. They had built their world on her silence. And in one moment, her voice had leveled it to the ground. The room was waiting. The guests, the investors, the partners, they were all looking at me, waiting to see what I would do next. The weak daughter, the scapegoat, the little hobby girl. I didn't feel weak. I felt clear. I walked past my father, past my brother, and stepped up onto the small stage. My heels clicked on the wood. I picked up the microphone my father had used to humiliate me. The feedback gave a soft shriek before I adjusted it. Tonight, I started, and my voice was steady. It didn't tremble. It echoed across the silent, glittering room. Tonight, my family has spoken a great deal about legacy, about what one generation passes down to the next. I looked at my father. For years, I was told that legacy was about strength, about power, about ruthless decisions. I turned my gaze to the guests. But my grandmother, Eleanor Miller, the woman who founded this company, believed in something different. I just read her words. And she reminded me that this company was never meant to be a prize. It was meant to be a responsibility. I could feel my father's eyes on me. But I didn't look back at him. I looked at Christopher. My grandmother left me this company, with one mission to restore its soul. And that restoration, that legacy of integrity, it has to start with action, not just words. I took a deep breath. This was it. The cord wasn't just being cut, it was being severed. Therefore, as the new head of Miller Industries, my first official act is this. Christopher Miller is immediately removed as Chief Operating Officer. Robert Miller is suspended from the Board of Directors, effective immediately. Gasps rippled through the room. My Aunt Susan, the lawyer, just nodded slowly, as if she knew this was the only way. We will be conducting a full, independent audit of the values this company has prioritized for the last 20 years. Miller Industries was founded on the belief that compassion and business could coexist. Tonight, that belief is back. I placed the microphone back on its stand. The silence was absolute. It was so total. I could hear the hum of the air conditioning. My mother, Karen, was the only one I could see clearly. Her hands clasped in front of her, tears streaming down her face. Then, from the back of the room, one person started clapping. A slow, deliberate clap. Then, another. And another. It wasn't the thunderous applause my father had received. It was something different. It was the sound of respect. It was the sound of justice. Finally served. I haven't spoken to my father or my brother since that night. The company audit is revealing. It's a long road. My mother and I, we're starting over. It's quiet. It's new. But for the first time in my life, I know I'm on the right path. Sometimes you have to cut the toxic cord. Not just for yourself, but to save the legacy that truly matters. Have you ever had to make an impossible choice between your family and your values? Share your story down in the comments. And please don't forget to like and subscribe if you want to hear more.